Hi everyone and welcome back. I'm continuing my beginner's average player's guide to the new aircraft carriers, and here we are. We have the United States Tier 4 Langley, the USS Langley. Here she is. She is very, very good at setting fires. She will set more fires than the Hosho at Tier 4. She's equipped with the same type of attack aircraft. I know they're a different name, but you know, they serve the same parameters. She's equipped with a squadron with 3 torpedo aircraft that, once again, like the Hosho, do have the ability to call. They have the fighter calling consumable, like I mentioned on the Hosho, and she has a squadron of dive bombers. Now, as opposed to the Hosho, which has armor piercing, the Langley has high explosive, and you will see there a 42% chance of fire on target. You are going to set a lot of fires, and you will watch quite happily as the enemy burns to death over and over and over. It's as if Wargaming decided that what the Langley really needed was to have the ability for you to turn the opponent into a barbecue, sit back and enjoy a couple of Bud Lights while you're waiting for the enemy ships to cook. Out of the two, during testing I preferred the Hosho. Now I prefer the Langley because she's much easier to play, she's more forgiving. The chance of fire means you have an increased chance of causing more damage, which, as we know in a Wargaming title, causing damage and killing enemies gives you prizes. She's pretty well rounded. I believe she's got roughly the same hit points, fully upgraded, as the Hosho. Her aircraft defense is roughly the same. It's the Hosho and the Langley are very, very similar. There's not much between them, but out of the two, the Langley is more well-rounded and more fun to play. And in general, I feel that because of that increased fire chance, that the USN tech tree of aircraft carriers is a lot better and more fun to play in general. She has the same terrible auto consumables, so just don't even bother thinking about them because it's out of your control. RNGs will say yes or no. And like I said a minute ago, the torpedo bombers do have this patrol fighter consumable. Now, I would say the same thing here that I said on my Hosho commentary, that use these patrol fighters late game or at a critical stage to blunt an enemy CV strike. Don't waste them because you will regret it. Upgrades, same upgrades as the Hosho. You get 2 slots, so I recommend using the same ones. Air Groups Modification 1 to increase the speed of your aircraft returning to your carrier, and Aircraft Engines Modification 1 to give them that boost time to their engine boost. Very, very important. Which then brings us on to the captain skills, which complement those equipments. The equipment loadout, sorry. Improved engine boost to once again improve the engine speed that boost gives you. Skill 2, improved engines. Once again, speed is crucial for your aircraft, because the less time you spend in an enemy's anti-aircraft aura, the better. Tier 3, aircraft armor. Once again, because of this massive buff that I mentioned in my Hosho commentary, the massive buff that enemy ships have been given to their anti-aircraft firepower is mind-numbing, and it will annoy the hell out of you. So being able to spend less time in their AA aura is an absolute being able to spend longer in that AA aura and not lose all your squadron's planes is an absolute must. And finally, site stabilization. This gives all of your aircraft improved aiming when you attack. So important, very, very needed, because it means you're not spending as much time once again in the absolutely horrid AA firepower that your enemies will dish out. Believe me, you will lose squadron after squadron to even a Miyogi, a ship that isn't well known for its firepower. So just imagine if you're up tiered against, say, something like a Congo. In fact, it'd be interesting to see how the Langley and the Hosho both do against the Yabari, the tier 4 Japanese premium, with its AA consumable. That'd be interesting to see when this patch goes live. And then finally, when you get some more points, go for your concealment expert. Don't be tempted to get this first. Get this, because you will enjoy the gameplay a lot more. And that's it for the Langley. Very well rounded, very, very good, and I believe much better than her IJN counterpart, the Hosho. But don't just take my word for it. Let's take her out and let's look at some gameplay. So here we are. We're on the new Dawn map. It's a domination game, and it looks as if only the enemy carrier is an actual human player. But the thing we have to remember is that even though we're playing against bots on the test server, that these bots seem to behave much like players normally do. So they'll make stupid mistakes, they'll go for the caps, they won't do what the bots do on the live server at the moment, which is run straight towards the enemy and get blapped, ram each other and just die. So I've decided to send my carrier down towards that island in I3, and I'm gonna once again set off by sending some rocket equipped fighters up to try and scout where the enemy team is, give my team vision, and to generally provide all that information that a carrier should provide. Where the enemy's going, how much is going in each direction, and generally be the eyes of my team. And if possible, try and get some early damage off. Now, the thing is, the Langley is very, very good, as I said in port, of setting fires. You can set a lot of them. You can deal lots of damage over time, both with your rocket equipped fighters, with your bombers, and deal flooding with your torpedoes. So we're going to aim at this destroyer, fire them off, and you probably will notice that as opposed to the Hosho, the Langley's rocket equipped planes seem to fire more rockets in a wider dispersion. Now, it's the benefit of throwing enough at the wall, and it does make the Langley a lot easier to play. And we fire up another set, another 6 hits, 6,000 damage overall, and they're done. We're going to send up some of these fantastic high explosive equipped bombers, and we're going to see if we can set some more fires. Try and make the enemy ships use their damage control so that the rest of my team can try and hit them with torpedoes and cause flooding, or the cruisers can fire off some high explosive if the enemy ships are angled to try and help deal a perma fire. Now I'm going to try and go for a cruiser. I believe there's a cruiser up ahead, but I'm primarily heading towards the Bravo capture point to try and give them vision on the enemy ships that are in there. And there we are. There's a destroyer, and there's 2 destroyers in fact, and an enemy cruiser. So you're now going to see the difference between the dive bombers on the Langley and the Hosho. Because they're high explosive, they actually hit. And when they hit, they don't just overpen, they actually do penetrating damage. Now, this is why I believe that the Langley is a much more well-rounded aircraft carrier. You can deal more damage to every ship. You cause more damage over time. And as opposed to the Hosho, which appears to be more specialised in cruisers and battleships, the Langley is a jack of all trades, and that generally makes it a lot more fun to play. So we're going in for a strike on this destroyer. aiming for the middle, transfer fire, and there we go. And that is the big difference you'll notice that the Langley has over the Hosho. She can deal with destroyers with every flight you send up, whereas with the Hosho, only the rocket equipped fighters can really deal that damage to destroyers. So I'm changing course and heading behind this bigger island now. I'm trying to use as many islands as possible as cover, and I'm heading out towards the Bravo capture point. Now I've sent up my torpedo equipped aircraft because as you notice, I have two shots of the fighter defensive cover, and I'm trying to hopefully going to use it against these torpedo bombers. And there you go, I've just set up a defensive screen that will hopefully screen against those torpedo bombers, but I believe he's trying to actually go for the destroyer. Right, man. Which he actually does. Good on him. So we're going in for a strike on these two battleships with my torpedoes. Now if you notice, you can drop them very, very, very close and give the enemy virtually no chance of avoiding them. There you go. Nice hit. 4,172 damage. Brilliant. Now both the Hosho and the Langley deal the same damage with the torpedo bomber, so neither one is really anything special when it comes to these, but it does mean that the torpedoes are your biggest damage dealing weapon, but that's offset by the fact that you don't have many of them. As you can see, each strike only consists of well, each wave is only 3 planes, and each strike as you go in, only one plane detaches, so you only launch one torpedo at a time. You don't have multiple waves going into an enemy that you'll find that you have later on. But do get into the habit of preparing for your attack run, lining up broadside on the enemy ships. This will help you later on when you're playing higher tier aircraft carriers to always line your strike up well in advance, especially when you have bigger waves, because the waves take longer to turn, and when you go in for a strike with more than one plane later on, you'll find that any slight movement when you're trying to aim can throw off the trajectory and the much wider spread it becomes. So get into the habit early, get down at tier 4 of aiming and getting yourself into position. Now I've launched some rocket equipped planes to take out this destroyer. Fingers crossed. Fire them off, and there we go. 2 hits, and that's 2 destroyers down, and we've taken out all of their destroyers. Now I'm not going to waste them. I'm going to see if I can set some fires on this enemy battleship here. Nope. That's 6 hits and 1 non-penetration. But now that all the enemy destroyers are gone, I can now concentrate on trying to deal much bigger damage to much bigger fish. So we're going to watch out for the enemy torpedo bombers that that definitely looks like the enemy fighter screen over the Bravo catch point. Now he's doing that to stop me aiming at that battleship that's sitting in the cap circle, because if I go into there, those fighters will absolutely shred me. So I'm going to avoid them, and I'm going to have to let my team, the other ships of my team, to try and take him out. But there's a nice cluster of ships here. Now with their combined AA, even at tier 4, they are going to deal a massive amount of damage, and they're going to deplane these squadrons very, very quickly. So we're going to aim for the middle, try and set some fires. A nice one there. And as you can see, I'm probably going to only get one more strike off, because their concentration of anti-aircraft firepower, even at tier 4, is phenomenal. And that's because it's been turned up a hell of a lot. Now it can get frustrating when you try and go in for the kills that you lose so many planes. Now that surprised me. I will admit that was surprising. To get a Citadel hit on a cruiser with a high explosive bomb. That's not the first time I've had it with the Langley, but it's very few and far between. Don't expect to get Citadel hits on a regular basis with the Langley. Do expect to get some nice fires, some nice flooding, deal lots of nice damage over time. The Langley is a jack of all trades. She doesn't particularly excel except in maybe setting fires, but she's good at incapacitating modules, she's good at dealing some damage over time, she's very, very good at providing support where you need it, more than what the Hosho can do. So we're going in for a torpedo run, trying to finish off this cruiser. Now the good thing is you can aim really, really close with these, but as you can see, the enemy jinked to one side and managed to avoid my torpedo strike. Now I'm going to come around and try and aim broadside at him to try and finish him off. So he turned because of my first torpedo, and I'm hoping that he's not going to turn in. I'm going to aim slightly ahead of him in my track, and he avoids me again. You see? Now that's the thing. Because you only fire off one torpedo at a time, it's very, very easy for the enemy to predict if they're in a cruiser or a destroyer exactly where you are. Now, do remember that this is a tier 4 game. You will get up tiered into tier 5. So the enemy have more AA. They have the battleships are faster. So take the Congo, for instance, a fast battleship. They'll be able to avoid your torpedo strikes a lot easier. And that's one thing to take into account. The Hosho is... No, sorry. The Langley and the IGN sister ship, the Hosho, they're very, very good if you're tier 4. Or even if you're top tier and most of the enemy ships are tier 3. But at tier 5, positioning is a hell of a lot more important. And there we go. Nice height for the bomb hit, and that's 3 kills and 37,000 damage. So, even though it looks pretty impressive with all the ribbons I have at the top of the screen, do not expect this to be an indication of what you'll be able to do in every match. There you go. Now that, I believe, was a Miyogi. Not a ship known for its amazing anti-aircraft firepower, but he absolutely minced the remainder of that bomber squadron that I'd sent up. So it can be frustrating, and it will be frustrating, because the enemy's anti-aircraft firepower is phenomenal. Now, you'll notice we're losing. There's not a lot I can do, and that is the frustrating thing you have when you're playing an aircraft carrier. You're good at dealing damage, you're good at dealing strategic damage at strategic locations, but you cannot win games on your own, not unless your team has weakened the enemy to the point where you can just send up some planes, finish them off quickly, one by one by one. You're good at dealing damage over time, as I've said. You're good at dealing positioning damage, denying assets, so providing line of sight on caps for your allies to take shots and everything. And that's one thing you have to get out of your head, is you cannot deal lots of damage on your own. It's a very team-based ship. So I fire off that torpedo very high. Did it arm? Yes, it did. And that's another strike. 48,000 damage. Pretty good. Now we're nearing the end of this game, because I think one more ship lost on our side and the enemy team will completely depoint us. But I hope this replay has given you an insight into how the Langley plays. Now, don't get me wrong, she isn't a bad carrier, and I believe she's better than the Hosho. I believe she's better at dealing the damage over time, she's better at dealing with important threats like destroyers, and thanks to her ability to set fires like that, she's a pretty good overall damage over time damage dealer, which allows your allies to also set fires, to set more permanent fires, and generally help you win the game. Now we lose because we lost that other ship, like I said. Pretty impressive score for the Langley. Sort of middle of the road, but as I'm an average player, That's pretty fine with me. Top of the team. So I hope this has given you a pretty good insight, and I will be putting more of these out for you. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the high seas.